Recent news stories have exposed evidence of apparent systematic corruption within the ACORN organization. At least 15 other states are currently investigating election-related violations of ACORN. And Minnesota majority has been investigating voter registration problems here in Minnesota for now nearly 12 months. Our findings have included thousands of potential felon voters, non-citizen voters, deceased voters, underage registrants, potential duplicate voting. According to reports, ACORN took credit for registering over 43,000 new voters in the state of Minnesota just prior to the 2008 election. If just 1% of those registrations resulted in illegal votes, they may have influenced the outcome of the 2008 election. We have repeatedly requested a formal investigation into these irregularities on the part of state and federal law enforcement officials. These requests for investigation have largely gone unanswered. Instead, we've received empty promises from election officials assuring us that we have the best election system in the nation and that there's absolutely no evidence of any election criminal activity. But I'm here today to tell you that this is simply not true. On the eve of the 2008 election, Fox 9 News reported that it had discovered over 100 cases of convicted felons having registered to vote, some from within prison. We understand that today in Ramsey County alone, over 100 felons are under investigation for possible criminal election activity. We also understand that 18 individuals have been indicted for election fraud or voter registration fraud, and that 5 of these individuals so far have pled guilty to the violation. A review of voter history records of these 5 individuals that have pled guilty show that at least 2 of these individuals appear to have also voted in the 2008 election. We understand that at least one of these individuals convicted of voter registration fraud has acknowledged that they were likely registered by an ACORN canvasser. This is just one example, one category of election irregularities from a single county. The question before us today is, who can Minnesotans trust to stand up for integrity in our elections? I'm pleased to say that we have candidates for governor here in 2010 that are willing to take that stand and sign a letter to Attorney General Lori Swanson. And with that, what I'd like to do is invite each of the candidates in alphabetical order to say a few words. Let's start with Pat.
Thanks. I'll be very quick. Minnesota was always known for its clean elections up until recently, and I think the timing is about the time that ACORN came in here and started actively recruiting people and trying to sign up folks, in many cases, who are not eligible to vote. And we are calling on the Attorney General, who is the top law enforcement official in the state, to take on an investigation that 15 other states have already done. So thank you.
Thanks, Pat. Thanks, Jeff. I've been the author and carried Minnesota's version of the photo ID bill for the last 5 years. We all want integrity in our elections, and we all want great voter turnout. But if you don't believe in the outcome, then it doesn't matter how many turned out. I want to commend Minnesota Majority for its efforts, and I think it really needs to be examined by Lori Swanson, our Attorney General's office. If you just take the numbers, sheer numbers, this should raise some red flags that people need to consider. First, there were 2,803 high probability matched felon records. They were matched, as I understand it, on first name, last name, middle name, and birth year. There is the possibility of some false positive matches, but not many are likely. Of those, 1,904 were registered in 2008. Now, ACORN has taken credit for registering 43,000 of those, as I understand, which is roughly 75% of all registrations. Using these statistics, one can easily conclude that ACORN may have been responsible for as many as 1,428 illegally cast votes in 2008. It just begs the question, and we're here to ask that our Attorney General, who's here to protect the citizens of the state of Minnesota, look into this and find out why this happened and verify that what's going on. ACORN needs to be addressed in Minnesota.
You know, when we look at this last election and we heard about ballots after the fact being found in cars, we've heard reports before the election about voter registration forms being found in mass. It's time for some real election reform. And as governor, that will be one of our objectives, is first of all, Tom, you're right, voter ID. I advocated that when I was in the legislature. It was always turned down. We need to have a voter ID with a picture on it so people can verify it. And the other thing that people aren't going to like, but you know what, as responsible voters, we all have the opportunity to vote, and we have a responsibility. We will go back to an October 1st deadline for all voters to be registered. That way, instead of after the elections finding out all these wrongs, we can find them out. We got 30 days for the Secretary of State and his people or her people to go through and find these and stop these people from voting. Then we're going to have true elections and the voice of the people will be heard. Thank you.
I want to thank Minnesota Majority for continuing to push this issue. There's nothing more key, more essential to our democratic process than ensuring that we have integrity at the ballot box. And we have seen example after example after example across this country. The 15 states that Jeff referenced, the prosecution that's currently underway in the state of Nevada related to voter fraud and ACORN. We absolutely need to make sure that that is not happening here in the state of Minnesota. I certainly suspect that it is, and I'm very concerned about that, and I appreciate Minnesota Majority's efforts to ensure that we have integrity in our electoral process, and am pleased to be here today to support their efforts.
I want to join the other candidates here today to lend my support to this. As many of you know, I worked with the governor here a couple weeks ago in terms of the executive directive to cut off ACORN. We need to go a step further and have the investigation. I have some materials on the table over there from 2004 when we found 300 voter cards found in a trunk at the Minneapolis airport from an ACORN worker. And so this isn't foreign to Minnesota. We have had problems in this state. It has been documented, and it is now time for the Attorney General to do her job and to investigate this organization. And I'm glad that we have all of us on the same page here advocating for that end. Thank you.
My name is Peter Hansen Racer, repeat from Sheboygan, and I am a DFL candidate for governor. I support what is said about ACORN. Now, many of those people were paid for doing their work too.
We've made several attempts to request investigation of some of our findings on the part of county election officials. I believe the last statistic that I saw was 50% of those requests went unanswered. This is when they are required by law to respond. We sent affidavits requesting investigation. This was of a case before the election of double voting, to 30 county attorneys. Approximately half of those people didn't even bother responding to our request. This is after multiple attempts. We're a small organization. We don't have the resources to police 87 county attorneys in the state of Minnesota for every one of these findings that we've uncovered. Somebody at the state level needs to take responsibility for ensuring that we have integrity in our election system, and that somebody in my mind is the Attorney General.